It's
Why is
beeping,
that
but it's
happening?
still, the little cursor is still loading, everyone. If you can see us, hello. We will get started very shortly. Okay, start webinar, start. Okay, so people can enter. All right, we're recording and folks can join the Zoom room, and I'll see you in a bit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's open house for The Bottom Line, a series of meetings dedicated to sharing the operational, budgetary, and management side of design business. Thanks so much for joining us. Before we get started, let's just do a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Please remember that AIGA follows a strict code of conduct for all its online meetings. Inappropriate or insensitive comments will result in your removal from this live event. AIGA is supported by our members. If you're not already a member, please consider joining us at aiga.org/join. Also, registration for this 12-part series is currently still open, and members save $150 for the full collection or $15 off per session. Another great reason to join and become a member. If you have a question for us today, please ask it in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of today's session. Okay. So with all of that out of the way, I'd like to take a moment to share a bit about myself and my partner, Nakita Pope, and how this series came to be. Hey, Nakita, I've been doing too much talking. Why don't you just introduce yourself first?
Hello, everyone. I'm Nakita Pope. I am the chief chick of Branding Chicks, branding studio here in Atlanta. I specialize in brand development and brand strategy for women-owned businesses. And George contacted me about doing this, and I'm so excited. At this point, I run a couple of businesses, and it's been a long road with lots of ups and downs. And I would have loved something like this when I first got started. So we've been talking about it quite a bit and planning for it. And I've worked with George before with some other AIGA initiatives. So we're really excited to be working together again.
Yes, this is awesome. And as Nakita mentioned, my name is George Garrastegui Jr. I'm a design educator and a podcaster here in New York City. I teach at the New York City College of Technology, and my podcast is the Works in Process podcast. And me and Nakita have worked on initiatives such as AIGA DEI, and some other initiatives that focus on education. And now we're going to bring to you a new series as an extension of the upcoming Design and Business Conference, right? So this past year in 2021, I was the chair of the Design and Business Conference, and that was way too much work for one person. So we needed to be able to split this up. And I reached out to my friend Nakita and wanted to bring her on. And with that, we're going to be planning the next and the future 2022 AIGA Design and Business Conference. But we were able to squeak out this new idea, this 12-month series, talking to 12 different studios over the course of the year, one every month, to find out kind of the more of the nitty-gritty of design business. Nakita, do you remember how this whole thing came about?
Yeah, we talked about it, and it was kind of like we were talking about the conference first, and about the things that we wanted to cover. But even with the focus of the conference, there were so many other like nuances and other other topics that were much more specific about running a business that we wouldn't be able to cover in the amount of time we had for the conference. And we decided that it made more sense to have these smaller, more intimate conversations with some other business owners and agency owners that we admire and that are doing amazing work, and talk to them about different aspects of their businesses. And that got us really excited because it allowed us to really focus on the diversity of the kinds of conversations that we can be having. We talked about how big the agencies might be, what kind of work and clients they have, what their business model might be, whether they have different streams of income or not. And that variety of different perspectives is really what we want to tap into, because there's no one way to do business anymore.
Exactly.
Especially design business, right? So we talked a lot about that, and that's kind of like the foundation of it. But it's kind of expanded from there.
Right. And I think one of the big things we learned was from the conference is we listened to our audience. We listened to the attendees and we listened to the fact that we knew we couldn't fit everything and every type of thing in just a 3-day conference, right? And we realized that, like Nakita mentioned, there's so much variation and diversity into the way design and business is, and there is not one way of being a design business, right? You shift from being freelance to being your own business owner, to being a design leader, to being alternate revenue streams, to thinking about how long you've been in the business, right? And how that plays into relationships. And I think we realized we couldn't do that even in the next conference. And we were like, there's got to be an opportunity to still have these conversations. And some of the things I think we also mentioned was, can we start talking about the stuff that we really don't talk about? Right? Can we talk about money? Can we talk about billing? Can we talk about corporate size and structure and the way you hire people, right?
And fire people.
And and fire people, right? And how do you still maintain relationships?
Yeah.
Right. Client building and business is all about relationships. Are you able to still maintain those, or are you going to burn a bridge? And does that affect everything else, that happens after that? So we really wanted to learn, right? And as Nakita mentioned, she's been dealing and supporting businesses, with her company, and I'm just, an educator who's looking to learn more. I'm looking to figure out how to empower myself to do more as a business entrepreneur and think about ways that I can kind of learn from other people. And I think that was one of the fun things, is to discover all these kind of business models, right, that we're able to actually figure out and get part of this series.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, I'm so excited about some of the people that we're going to be talking to. And I think, I just, as George said, it's not just for you guys, it's for us too. Like, I'm like drooling over here at some of the information that's going to come out of these conversations with people that are doing some really cool stuff. And I think that this is a time where people are really creating their own lane and creating their own way of being creative, creating their own way of working with clients. And we want to hear about all of that, because those are the things that, allow us to not only apply our creativity to the work that we're doing, but also to our careers. Like, it opens up so many doors when you can look at all of the things that are available. Like, oh man, I never considered doing it that way. And there are other people doing it that way. I just feel like there's so much to learn there, and there's going to be some really good nuggets that come out of this. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the Salon series, and this is what our goal was to have these be smaller conversations, right. Because, I know for myself, luckily I had a group of people that were kind of, starting businesses around the same time I did. So I had that sounding board and I, safe space to ask questions, but not everybody has that. And I still needed that. Like, they might have been a safe space, but they didn't always have the answer. And I think it's important to be able to build community in that way, so that you have an environment that you feel safe asking the questions. Talk to me like I'm a 4-year-old and explain it to me, because sometimes you need that. Right. I can't lie. I had that conversation with several people, about different aspects of my business, because they were things I just didn't understand and that I knew I had to learn,
Exactly. And I think one of the things you mentioned is conversation. I think what's going to make this different, hopefully, and we're going to practice over the course of the year, is this is going to be a conversation, right? So, right now we're kind of live and broadcasting multiple places, but during this monthly salon series, we're going to be intimate. We're going to feel like we're in a room together and be only in Zoom and have the ability to learn from the guests that we have on. And then we're going to be able to talk to them, right? We're going to be able to be in that room and not only me and Nakita be able to have a conversation with them and guide maybe some things we want to learn from them, but so are you, right? So if you're part of this conversation, if you're in the room with us, you have access to our guests. You have the ability to just ask a question and feel like you're gaining insight from that specific person. And I think what we're going to be doing is, obviously, if you register, we're going to be recording these sessions. Mm-hmm. So that kind of half hour of the initial insight from our guests will be recorded so that you can rewatch it and learn. But that final half hour, that community aspect, that feeling that we're all together is just going to be us. That's not going to be for anybody else. We're not going to record that, right? So we can all feel kind of, good and not have the pressure that I ask a question and it's on live and now it lives on in infamy, for
Right.
everybody else to re-record that, right? I think we need that moment, that security, that community for us to be able to do that. And I think this is going to be a really fun way for us to learn more about all these business models so we can start to maybe apply that to what we do, or at least change the way we think about, the idea that design and business is only thought about one way.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, make it a little less scary, for the people that are thinking about taking that leap or who are already knee deep in it and are like, oh man, I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Just to make it a little less scary, because I feel like once you have more information, that confidence and that security comes along with that, because now you know that you're not in it alone and that you have some real information to kind of take and run with instead of like trying to figure it out all by yourself.
Right. And I think, we're all learning, right?
For sure.
Doing any of these things is kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even right now, doing this live and knowing that we're doing something and other people that are watching, right. Yeah. We may not seem like it, but we're like, scared. We're, but we're going to power through and kind of put this on. Right. And I think this is some of the things that, having this ability to connect with some of our guests is going to help us through. And just, as I tell my students, right, the more we do it, the more we get comfortable.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's what we're all trying to do. Just be a little bit more comfortable every single time we do it, every single time we reach out to somebody, every single time we learn a new nugget of business and design to push us forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I think we have one question. I'm gonna start to take some questions, right? Nakita, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's do it.
Let me see. So I have somebody, Amy Parker. Industry has a huge impact on pricing for creative work, in addition to what your tangible outputs are. Curious what experts are brought in to discuss the pricing. Will folks be talking about international competitions as well?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. That is I mean, as far as pricing, definitely, we're considering the size of the agency, right? So a freelancer probably has, a different pricing structure than somebody who's been doing this for 25 years and that amount of experience, right? And I think what we did looking forward was considering people from also different parts of the country to help consider what that means, right? And I think, from what I remember, we're considering the idea of some of those conversations, right? I think I think it's Simone Key, a creative studio out in Dallas, who may be thinking about, how to make sure our pricing stays, still, and we don't kind of think about how those creeping things that come up start to add and we don't actually start to invoice them. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. And I think as we get closer, we're going to have a little bit more solidified, understanding of what each guest is going to bring. We've scheduled everything from January, which is in a month, to December, which is in a year. Right. So I think as we go along, especially something what, Amy brings up is the ability for us to make sure somebody's trying to address that, because we know that our audience wants to hear more about that information. And we'll be talking about international competitions. I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think that's something that we, because I think, competition gives us notoriety and things like that. And how does that help our business and support? So I think that's an interesting way for us to start to think about other ways to have a conversation. But thank you, Amy, for that question.
And one thing I'll add to that too is that, one of the reasons why, it's important for us to get feedback from you guys and to hear from you as these things are happening is so that we can continue to use that information to shape the conversations throughout the rest of the year and for the conference. So, just like George said, we're thinking about this conference based on some of the feedback that we got from last year. It's sort of the same thing for the Salon series. We want to make sure that we are delivering the information that you really are looking for. And we try to tap into people that have very different perspectives on the same topic in some cases, because, like you said, there's so many variables there. Like when it comes to pricing, it's what market you're in, what size businesses you work with, like all that kind of stuff, what your overhead looks like. Like there's so many things that go along with that. And hearing that from different people, I think is going to be pretty cool. The same way that the conference last year was all about relationships and how those different relationships impacted the work and what those look like. So, that variety, I think, is important because it allows you to find yourself in there, right? Like whether you're just getting started or whether you've, been in business for 2 years or been in business for 10 years, our hope is that you can find some information there that you can hold on to, regardless of where you are in the scope of things. And that was one of the other questions that Amy had, was about like, is this a beginner sort of series for like 101 in business? And, I don't think we see it that way. I think it's much more about, being able to provide a variety of different perspectives and people that are sharing from different stages. Like we have, some people that have only been in business for a few years. We have some that have been in business for a long time, some that have, even shifted gears and decided to, sort of split off their business or have different revenue streams. So there, I think, we've sort of curated people that have a variety of different experiences.
Right.
What would you say?
I don't think we want it to be a one-on-one. I think because of this intimate nature, we're talking to business owners, we're talking to creatives who've been doing this for a long time. We want this to be an elevated conversation. We don't want to, be talking about kind of the same simple things of how to start an LLC, how to do this, and how, those are things that you're probably already coming into the room with, and you don't really want to hear the same conversation over and over and over again, right? Exactly. We have a lot of those 101 stuff on aiga.org and some resources they have, you can easily pick up that information. We want to make sure that you get the opportunity to ask the question and learn about something that you weren't really like able to find somewhere. Right. Yeah. We're also using this, I think, as a connection, right? To be like, we're able to be a conduit between the guests that we have and the audience that's watching. Right. And if we can bring you closer to learn about a different revenue stream, or how do you maintain a client for 20 plus years, or how do you, fire somebody who's, been really, just not aligned with you anymore, but still stay, either friends or, things like that. I think those are different conversations than some of the 101 stuff. And we hope to push past that. Right. So, I think it definitely is a thing that Nakita mentioned, is that we want to hear from you. We want to definitely learn that this conversation's been said 17 times over before. Why are we still talking about X, Y, Z? Right? Because, from some of the people who've been doing this for a long time, they have that insight and they're going to gloss over some things, and we don't need to talk about, that. But we want to get into the weeds about, how a company becomes maybe socially responsible, how they start thinking about, the community that they're in and who they design for, or how do they start to think about, what they're doing and realize that they have a leadership voice and want to do another, endeavor to kind of expand that voice, right? Like these are all the things that are a little bit more, we think, future forward, right? Because I think design is so much more than just the output. There's all these other things that are involved that sometimes we just don't learn about, or we weren't told because we were focused on design school, but not business. and there's so many things that being your own entrepreneur, you have to kind of figure out along the way. And maybe this can help you, right? So Amy's been asking some killer questions in the chat. We're definitely up for some more, but I think, one of the things I think Amy brings up a good conversation of like, are we going to make sure, what our guests are going to be talking about? And I think we've considered the curation of the timing and what they're going to be doing and what we're learning to hopefully give you a wide variety of information. Right. That's the plan.
Yeah. That's the plan. And we're both, as we said before, both of us are educators. So, we are aware of the fact that people learn in different ways. And so I know for me, sometimes I've heard, something over and over again, but I hear that somebody says it like just in a different way, or they explain it in a different way, and I immediately get it. Right. And so I think that there's an opportunity for that here as well. And just talking about people's journeys, because I think that that's another thing that I find very inspirational when you're looking at what your next milestone or your next goal is going to be, is, hearing how people got to where they are, and the decisions that they had to make, about their businesses and about their careers, whether they were easy decisions or hard decisions. Like, so often those are the things that change the trajectory of your business. And so, I'm excited to hear about some of those things, because, most business owners that I know, especially now, are looking like, okay, we finished the year, like finish this year. What does next year look like? What are our goals going to be? Who do we need to connect with? What kind of clients do we need to bring in? What does our revenue need to be? And so we're hoping that this can be sort of a little bit of a guiding light throughout the year as you're trying to meet your goals as a business owner, or a freelancer, or a solopreneur, or as somebody who's just still thinking about taking the leap. Like, okay, I need to have some of these things in place, but it's inspiring to me to see what other people have done,
The journey is such an important thing.
Yeah,
I think, sure. I think that we need to embrace the fact that there is no one way to get to where you're at. Yeah. And there's also no status level. Like, you don't, if you've been doing it for 5 years or 25 years, you don't need to be at a certain level. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. I think there's been so much concern about, well, I've been doing this for X amount of years, I need to be at this level. You know what? I don't really believe in that. I believe you kind of are at a level when you get there. Yeah. And sometimes, life gives you lemons, and, and you make something out of it. And sometimes you need to adjust and shift. And I think, like Nakita mentioned, the fact that we're able to learn and adjust and shift is what makes us valuable, is what makes us unique, and what makes people want to work with us. So we're all going to be really learning from that. I mean, it's going to be we all should just be like, buy a sketchbook for this series and just literally just the notes. You start from January 25th until December, and see what all the nuggets we've kind of come out with it. Because I think, from all the different places, I mean, we're touching people from, Indianapolis, Minnesota, Ohio, Canada, Puerto Rico, Texas, New York. We're definitely, reaching around the country and learning how different people are focusing. Oh, even DC. Right. And I think this is definitely, a way for us to understand also how different markets play. Right. Because now that we're all, can be in virtual spaces, we don't have to only be local. Yeah, right. We can be kind of global and national, and consider our business not just, a local business, but we can branch out. Right. And sometimes we just need to see how other people have done it. Right. And that gives us the confidence to do it. Right. And so, like I said, I'm going to kind of like just go in and ask a bunch of questions about, like, how'd you do this? How'd you do this? How'd you do this? Because that's how we learn. Right. And I definitely think, that's going to be the fun part of this. And what I really want to take away is really those conversations after the presentation. Right. So I really want all of you to be here and take this journey with us, and be able to dig, kind of into the insight, and dig into the ways that we really want to focus on this, because in reality, this series will be what you, the attendees, make of it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think, and, I know I've been in this situation before. Like, I've, attended a ton of webinars and business classes and all kinds of stuff. But if you can't ask the question that is really specific to you, then sometimes it just feels so theoretical that you don't have anything concrete to hold on to. But if you can ask your specific question that applies directly to your business and you get an answer, it's like it breaks the whole thing open. Like I'm going to leave here right now and go do what that person told me to do, or start doing what they're going to be doing. So I think that's a great thing to think about, is like, how can you make this really work for you? And how, what do you want to learn from it? What do you want to take away from it, over the course of the time? And I encourage you guys to take a look at the lineup and the list, so that when it's their month to present, if you're going to be in attendance, like, do some research, kind of see what's going on with them, so that you have, like, your questions all ready to go, or maybe they just come up while you're on the call. But I think that's something that will allow you to get the best out of it. In January, we have Marie Chantal from Cryptony out of Canada. She's a color expert, and that's going to be super exciting. So she's our first salon out of the series. So I'm really excited about talking to her. And she released her Pantone Color of the Year prediction right before the actual one came out. And that's cool. Just the idea that she's considering all these things to figure out what that might be on a yearly basis is pretty awesome. So yeah. I can't wait to hear about how she uses, like, the practice of color and working with so many different clients in different ways. So
yeah, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great way to start this series.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely I agree with Nakita. Look at the lineup on aiga.org under design and business. We have most of the 12 guests already, lined up, month to month. Like I said, these will be recorded, so you have the ability to, reach out and revisit these if you do miss one. But we're definitely trying to make sure that, the design and business offerings are definitely something that you get with all of the options you get from AIGA, right? So, there are certificates that we have, and you will have access to these recordings. If you buy the recordings one off and you're a member, you get discounts. If you want to buy single episodes instead, you can do that. And then you have access to this in your account, right? As long as you're a member. And I think this is the ability to, no longer just look at aiga.org as just a website that's, giving you information, but it's a connection. It's a way for us to connect with all these different people and build community, because I think we all understand that design doesn't live in a bubble, and it shouldn't. And we need to connect and learn from everybody else to be able to push this, profession forward, right? It's been doing whatever it's been doing for a long time, and we need to adjust and make it adjust with everybody else. And I think that's what this series is doing. That's also what we're going to be doing as we start to actually, consider and think about the conference that's also going to happen in May, right? So we're going to have the AIGA Design and Business Conference that'll run May 4th through the 6th. Along with all the other conferences that are coming up, in March, the Design and Advocacy Conference. Then there's our conference. Then there's going to be the portfolio review, and then the main conference in Seattle, right? So AIGA has a bunch of stuff that we all can be involved in, and I think we're just trying to get one aspect of it. Let me see. I have one last comment from an anonymous attendee. I believe you've already addressed this. Just wanted to confirm. Will it be a conversation format with everybody on Zoom, or will it be more like an open house today and with speakers only? Anonymous, it will be an open house. It will be a conversation with everybody on Zoom having access versus kind of this maybe closed off version that it is, because it will not be broadcast on other things. Like right now we're on LinkedIn, I believe, and we're on Facebook, and we have some guests in Zoom. This will only be a Zoom conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, if there's no more questions in the chat and there's no more questions out there in the universe, this has just been a little sneak peek of what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be flowing with this. And this is going to be a nice, easy, enjoyable conversation with our guests. And look out for those emails. We may be building a community to allow us to connect with each other throughout the year, and hopefully you can be part of that from January on. If you're watching this on LinkedIn or found us about this on LinkedIn, please reach out to Nakita or myself. If you have any questions, if you look at something that one of the studios that you see and you want to ask specific questions, please reach out to us. You know, we definitely want to start building this now, and the ability for all of us to feel like we're all in this together, because in reality, that's what it is. I think me and Nakita are just here to facilitate and really want to do what you guys all want to do.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you get what you need out of this. So yeah, if you want to reach out to either of us, we're open for that. And also, like he said, you know, if you have any questions that you want to make sure that we ask while we're on with any of our guests, we'd be happy to hear them.
Yep, definitely. Anything else you want to say, Nakita?
That's it. I'm just excited.
Me too. Me too.
Let's get it.
This 2022 is going to be good, right? Let's get it. I want to say thank you to AIGA. I want to say thank you to everybody watching. And if you watch this later on the replay, I want to say thank you to you in advance. But thank you, you know, also for Amy for the questions and the anonymous question that we had, you know, in the chat pod. They were really enlightening and allowing us to think about what we need to do moving forward. So, yes, you know, we really hope you join us, and everybody have a good, happy holiday and a joyous new year. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.